The Seventh Citadel is a cooperative exploration and adventure game for 1 to 4 players aged 10 and above. In this game you will play a character represented by either a plastic figure or a cardboard standee. Each character also has their own life point counter in the same color for you to keep track of how many life points they have left. Along with this overview video, we recommend that you read the rulebook, which is here. The game is played in campaigns, which are called threats and are divided into scenarios. Each threat lasts many hours and comes in the form of a specific threat booklet. There are 2 in the base game, Dardashaim's Awakening and Drums of Desolation. Before each new campaign, players must systematically play the introductory scenario called A New Beginning, which we'll mention again when addressing game setup. The base box includes a bookmark that enables you to know where you are in the threat in progress. And here's the Citadel leaflet. It contains a player aid, as well as several helpful pages on which you can take notes during the adventure. The buildings pages, where you will build helpful buildings. The community page, where you can write down information about your community. The Destiny page that will display your group's evolution as you spend the experience points you earn along the adventure. On the right, the page listing your side quests, and in the middle, the map of the Kel Protectorate. This map, representing the world as it looked like about 100 years ago, also exists in a plasticized version called the World Map, where you will be able to insert numbered cards in these slots to update it as you discover the major changes that alter the territory. This is the dialogue book, which contains hundreds of paragraphs to enable you to talk with the inhabitants of the world. When an in-game effect invites you to read a dialogue, you just need to find the corresponding paragraph and read it. Finally, the game contains hundreds of cards stored in trays and organized with dividers. There are several types of cards. The character cards representing the 4 characters who can take part in the adventure. The save cards that allow you to save the game. Each character has 2 in their own color. The action cards with a blue back represent the character's basic and advanced skills. The exploration cards with a foggy back are the random events you need to resolve to continue exploring. And last, the numbered adventure cards that include the events, characters, places, etc. that you will interact with. The game comes with 4 6-sided dice that are used to resolve certain actions, and a magnifying glass to scrutinize the cards and increase your chances to spot clues and hidden numbers. Let's now see how a new game is set up. Before playing a new threat, players must systematically begin with the introductory scenario that presents the world where your adventures take place and invites you to choose a character between the 4 available. In the following example, I will play solo and I choose to play the character Arthur. You can choose your character's gender by flipping the character card over. I'll take the corresponding figure and the life point counter, both in the same color. I'll then create my character's action deck, made of their 15 skill cards showing their initial A in the top left corner. I'll now choose the orientation I want for my character. I can choose these skills freely, or go with one of the 4 recommended orientations: Strength Stamina, Leadership Support, Knowledge Arcane, or Dexterity Cunning. I'll choose the latter, and I'll therefore take the corresponding cards showing the letter X. And I now have an action deck made of 20 cards with which I'll begin the adventure. I'll now read the preparation phase for this scenario. First, I'll set my life point counter back to 0 before adding the amount of life points shown in the scenario. As I'm playing solo, Arthur gets 45 life points. I'll then shuffle my action deck and I'll draw 2 skill cards with helpful effects from it to form my starting hand. In a solo game, I can have no more than 4 skill cards in my hand, as shown on my character card. Reading on the instructions for this scenario, I'll take the adventure card number 10 to begin the game. That card is between the 000 and the 050 dividers. Card number 10 has flavor text on the back. I read the text and then flip the card over and put it into play. So here's the first card on the board. It's a terrain card and I'll place my figure on it. Finally, the introductory scenario tells me to stop reading for now and place the bookmark here until the game allows me to keep reading, which will happen when I've finished the introductory scenario. Arthur is ready to begin the adventure, so let's see how a turn goes. Each turn, one player is appointed to be the active player. As I'm playing solo, I'll always be the active player. The active player will take an action, which is always represented by a white square containing an icon showing what action it is. I can take the actions shown on my terrain card, so in the present case, I have 3 possible actions. I can also take the action on my character card, which is the move action. New actions will soon become available, as we'll see in a moment. The player aid in the Citadel leaflet has a list of all the existing actions. So along your adventures, you will get to move, fight, climb, play music, and so on. You don't need to know this list by heart, because the icons are contextual, and you'll understand what you're presented with. So on this terrain, I can visit, search the rubble, or observe something. All actions follow the same principle. The number in the blue diamond is the amount of energy I must spend, that is, the number of cards I need to draw from my action deck to perform the action. Here, all actions have a cost of 0, so I don't need to draw any cards from my action deck during the draw step of the action. The number in the star is the difficulty of the action, that is, the number of successes I need to obtain for the action to succeed. The cards I'll draw from my action deck grant me variable amounts of successes. Here the difficulty is 0, so the action will automatically succeed. Arthur chooses to visit, to find a way out of this room. During the draw step, I don't draw any cards, since the cost of the action is 0. During the result step, the action automatically succeeds. During the consequence step, I apply the consequence shown in the white success section, that is, take the adventure card number 15. It turns out that 2 cards number 15 are available, one with a green back, one with a gold back. The rule is simple. You must take a green card if one is available, and you may only take a gold card if no green cards are available. I'll return the gold card, read the text on the back of the 15 card, and flip it over. This card has an arrow icon here, meaning it's a permanent event that I'll put into play and that will stay on the board. The arrow must point to the terrain this permanent event is now attached to, and the card must be oriented in the same way as the other cards on the board. And to remind me that this is the action I performed and that I can no longer take it, there's a smaller orange version of the visit action icon inside the arrow. So now, this permanent event shows a new action that I can take as long as my figure is on the terrain card it's attached to. Here I can flee the room, so I'll take this action. The cost is 1+, meaning I need to draw 1 or more cards from my action deck. The difficulty is 0, so I choose to draw just that 1 card. The action automatically succeeds. During the consequence step, thanks to the blue hand icon, I can add one drawn skill card to my hand. I then apply the other consequences of the action, discarding this card and replacing it with a 15 card, on which each character who was involved in the action must move their figure. To discard this card, I'll move it to a play area called the Past, materialized by a divider that I can lay flat on the table. I'll then fetch the 15 card. Since the green 15 card has been discarded, I can now take the gold 15 card, read the text on the back, and flip it over. It's a new terrain, so I put it into play in the now free space, just like in a puzzle, and I move Arthur onto it. There are new orange arrow icons on this terrain, meaning I must put into play exploration cards from the shown area, which in this case is the introductory scenario area. I'll then fetch 2 exploration cards behind the corresponding divider and put them each into play next to an arrow. And I can now take 2 new actions to explore in these 2 directions. These exploration cards hide new terrains, so I'll have to resolve them if I want to continue exploring. These 4 arrows remind me that they're also permanent events, as was the one we discarded into the past earlier. I can take this action here, or Pathfind to the west, or Pathfind to the south. I choose to take the spot action available on the terrain card, and I take card number 18. I read the text on the back and flip it over. Again, it's a permanent event, and I put it into play. This card offers me to take a lift action to release an individual stuck under piles of rock. I finally decide to explore in this direction. Seems like there's a room there, I'm intrigued. So I take the Pathfind action, and I apply the consequence by flipping the card over. And I reveal a card with the hourglass icon. The hourglass means this is a temporary event card, and I must resolve it immediately before discarding it into the past. I read the flavor text and the effect here, which tells me the player who revealed the card must be the active player, which I am. The red outline around the dodge action means that this is a mandatory action. All the characters on the active player's terrain card must immediately perform it together, unless otherwise stated. I must draw 0 or more cards from my action deck and obtain at least 2 successes for the action to succeed. If I succeed, I'll apply the consequence in the white section. If I fail, I'll apply the consequence in the black section. Here, suffer 1 damage, causing me to lose 1 life point. Now, before drawing any cards, I'll check if I have skills in my hand that can help me dodge. Here, the brown square means that when I perform the corresponding action, I can apply the shown effect. In the present case, this skill helps me when I fight, not when I'm dodging or doing some other action. By the way, this skill also allows me to take an action, the rest action. Now, the cost of the dodge action is 0 or more. However, I need at least 2 successes to succeed. So, I decide to draw 3 cards from my action deck during the draw step. During the result step, I reveal these cards and take the obtained successes into account. So, I get 4 half successes on 2 of the cards and a full success on the 3rd. I can combine the half successes like so, in order to get a second full success. So in the end, I have the 2 successes I needed to succeed. The 3 cards I've drawn are discarded during the consequence step. I put them into my discard pile, and I read the consequence text. The card is a temporary event, so it's discarded into the past. And this icon here means that once this exploration card is resolved, it's replaced with the adventure card bearing the number shown here, 31. I discard the exploration card and I take the 31 card and put it into play. Once again, I have a green card and a gold card, so I must take the green card. I read the text on the back and flip it over. It's a new permanent event. It tells me I am facing a locked door, and I can take a new action if I wish to pick the lock. For the time being, the difficulty of the action is quite high, just like here to rescue the individual stuck under the pile of rocks, so I decide to explore south. I reveal a card with a purse icon, which is an item that I may add to my inventory. This metal wire can help me when I perform the pick lock action, coincidentally I have a door to open, or the repair action. As you can see here, purse cards have keywords. We'll talk about keywords later. So I put this card into play in my inventory. And there's again the icon, meaning that once this exploration card has been resolved, it's replaced with the adventure card that belongs there. So I'll replace it with card number 19. I put this new terrain into play, and I take an exploration card that I lay to the south. There. New turn, and thanks to the wire I found, I'll try and pick the door's lock. So during the gear up step of the action that comes before the draw step, I select the purse cards whose effects I may and want to apply. However, I may not select multiple cards displaying the same keyword. So the pick lock action requires me to draw 2 cards or more and obtain 3 successes. The chain icon means that no matter how many cards I draw, I'll be able to take into account successes on no more than 2 of these cards, because 2 is the default cost of the action, shown in the blue diamond. So without skills or purse cards to help me, success is quite unlikely. Thanks to the metal wire I've selected, I'll be able to take into account the successes on the 3rd card. It also gives me 1 additional success for each cloak icon I reveal, with a maximum of 2 successes. This cloak is a class icon that can be found in larger amounts on the skills of the characters with a dexterity cunning orientation. So during the draw step, I decide to draw 3 cards and I reveal them. 2 of these cards give me 1 success. I could take the successes on the 3rd card into account, thanks to the metal wire, but it only shows half a success, worth nothing. But I also obtain 2 cloak class icons and 3 arcane icons that are useless to me, and I can turn these cloaks into 2 additional successes for a total of 4 successes. I needed 3 to succeed, so I apply the consequence of success in the white section. Note that if I'd failed, I could have applied the consequence in the black section and added 1 of the drawn skill cards to my hand. As it's not the case, I'll put the 3 drawn cards into my discard pile and apply the consequence. So I'll banish this card and replace it with a 31 card. The green 31 card is permanently removed from play, so I'll place it behind the banished cards divider and take the gold 31 card, which is a new terrain, so I'll put it into play. And last, I must apply the following effect. If the card was selected during the gear up step of the action, I must discard it. So I discard my metal wire into the past. So on this terrain I've just put into play, there are 3 available actions. There's also one here and one here. And I could possibly go back to the starting terrain to take one of the actions I didn't perform there. So I decide to move to be able to perform the actions in the room I just opened. For this, I'll take the move action on my character card. This move action has a default cost of 1 card and a difficulty of 0. It allows me to add a skill card drawn during the draw step to my hand and move my character's figure to an adjacent terrain card. Note that the brown move condition lets me lower the action's cost by 1 if another character's figure is on the terrain I'm going to. The character card also shows the maximum number of skill cards I may have in my hand. Currently I have 3, I may have up to 4, as well as the maximum weight my character may carry. These figures vary depending on player count. Certain purse cards have a weight icon containing a number, which wasn't the case with the metal wire I discarded. So I'll take the move action, supposedly drawing 1 card, but you see here a mandatory condition icon that increases the move action's cost by 1. So I'll need to draw 2 cards to move, and I need 0 success. So I draw the 2 cards, and I apply the consequence of the action. I may add one of these 2 skills to my hand, I discard the other into my discard pile, and I move my figure to the adjacent terrain card. Now we'll address a special type of action called compound action, because unlike other actions, it needs to be performed multiple times to be completed. To materialize, you take a 6-sided die and set it to a value equal to the action's difficulty. In this example, which is a random event on an exploration card, I can fight aggressive birds. When I take the action, I place the die on the action's first row, showing the difficulty of the action on its upper face. There are 3 rows here, so I'll place the die on the first one, showing the number 3, which is the difficulty on that row. Unlike simple actions, here I need to bring the die's value down to 0 for the action to be a success. During the result step of the action, each success I take into account lowers the die's value by 1. And if that value goes below 1, the action is a success. Otherwise, it's a failure. If I succeed, I'll apply the consequence in the white success section, and if I fail, the one in the black section. So here, if I succeed, I'll suffer 2 damage, which causes me to lose life points on my life point counter. Note that I can reduce the amount of damage using effects from purse cards with the keyword armor and certain skills. And also, as part of the consequence, I'll be able to move the die 2 rows down. Like so. However, if I fail, if I obtain fewer successes than the value of the die, I'll suffer 1 damage, I'll be able to add 1 skill card to my hand, and I'll move the die to the next row, so the fight will be longer. Before taking the action, I'll check if I have skills in my hand that can help me. Well, I have 2. This one allows me, when I fight, to take into account successes on 1 additional card if the action has a chain icon. This one does. While, however, forbidding that I use shield type effects to prevent damage. And there's this one that I can discard during the gear up step of the action to obtain 1 additional success during the result step. So I discard this one to apply its effect, which gives me 1 success already. The cost of the action is 2+, and I choose to draw 3 cards. I reveal them to take successes into account, and I obtain 4 successes on top of the one I already had. That's a total of 5 against the 3 I needed, so it's a vast success. So I apply the consequence for success, I take 2 damage, therefore losing 2 life points, and I move the die to the last action row. It's still a fight action, but on this row it has a cost of 5 and a difficulty of 1, so it costs me a lot of energy but isn't very difficult. So I draw 5 cards and reveal them. Of course, I obtain way more than 1 success, so the action succeeds and I apply the consequences in the white section. I discard these cards, I take 1 damage, therefore losing 1 life point, and I take a 005 card, which is a purse food card showing the eat action. If I eat, I'll be able to take 5 random cards in my discard pile and shuffle them back into my action deck. Last, I discard this to the past. And I now just have one card left in my action deck, so it's time for me to perform a recovery. I can perform a recovery at any time in order to shuffle cards from my discard pile back into my action deck. So for each life point I decide to lose, I can take 2 random cards from my discard pile and shuffle them back into my action deck. I count the cards in my discard pile. I have 16 cards in my discard pile, and I decide to lose 8 life points to shuffle them back into my action deck, enabling me to continue my adventure. Alright, I decide to stop playing for now, so I need to save the game. I take the 2 save cards of the same color as my character and life point counter. If we were 2 or more players, characters would first need to gather together on the same terrain card before I could save. I'll keep the terrain card where I am when I save, and discard all the other cards on the board into the past. I take my character card. I put the action deck save card on my action deck. The discard pile save card on my discard pile. I slip my skill cards underneath my character card, same with my purse cards. And so I have a stack made of, for each player and from top to bottom, the terrain where I chose to save, my character card with their skill and purse cards underneath, the cards in my action deck, and the cards in my discard pile. And I store this stack behind the save divider. Now when I resume the adventure, I retrieve this stack, I put the terrain card into play with my character figure on it, I put exploration cards into play next to the orange arrows, making sure they match the area where I am, in this case area 1. I put my character card back into play. I did keep track of my life points on my life point counter. I take my skill and purse cards back. I put my action deck back into play. Same with my discard pile. And the adventure may be resumed. That's all, folks. We hope this video helps you get familiar with the main mechanics of the game, and we wish you good luck on your adventures.